Welcome to Up All Night DIY. I'm Monica. Thanks for joining me. I have a couple of really quick projects, really simple and easy. I'm going to go a little more organic, textural, might even say Mediterranean, with this stone effect. Right, so let's get into it. So I've grabbed myself a couple of packets of 1.4-inch foam balls. I got these at the Dollar Tree. I feel like these are the perfect size for a faux stone bead. You know what I'm saying? So to get that stone effect, we're going to use some of this Red Devil Onetime spackling. This is a really budget-friendly and quick way to cover styrofoam, and it adds a lovely texture. I have here some spackling that I had previously colored cream for a different project. I'm going to start with this, might as well use it up, right? So I'm just going to add a wee bit of Ceramcoat Hippo gray to this. I'm going to make sure that it's really well mixed, and this is just going to give us like a medium gray color to our spackle. Now that's a good place to start for me because I want my beads to incorporate different shades of grays and browns just to match the other decor that I've made more recently. Things like this. My finials, my triptych, and my little shrines. Even my faux metal bunny. You get the idea. I have some skewers here, and I'm going to push 3 styrofoam balls onto each skewer. I'm going to slide the balls all the way down the skewer, leaving a little bit of a gap in between each one so that I have some space to add the spackling to each ball. Having them on the skewer is also going to make it really easy for these to dry very quickly, and it's also adding that hole that we're going to need to thread them. I'm going to apply a layer of the spackling with my paintbrush here. I'm just going to dab it on. I want to have peaks and valleys and different texture, for a more natural, organic feel. I just want to make sure that I get all of the styrofoam covered because, we don't want any of that weight peeking through. I'm going to continue until I have all 12 of my foam balls covered. And then once everything's covered, I'm going to let them dry for about, 20 minutes, half hour, something like that. Now we're going to add some depth with some acrylic paint. So I have here a dark brown color. I believe this is dark chocolate brown. I've misted it with some water to thin out the paint. And with a soft rag, I'm just dabbing it onto each of my little stones. Now, I'm going to do this sporadically, so the entire ball won't get covered. I want some of that gray to peek through, and we're going to add additional colors as we go. There's no real rhyme or reason to this, it's just whatever's pleasing to the eye, and I can always come back in and add more this shade of brown if I want, and I can tone it down by adding different shades of gray, black, etc. You get the idea. Now I'm going to come back in with some more Hippo gray, and we're just going to dab it on. Again, I've watered it down a wee bit just to make it a little more translucent. I'm going to go even darker with a little bit of Ceramcoat Charcoal here. Not quite black, but pretty close. You can always pull up a variety of references, look up different, garden features that are stone effect to get an idea of the colors that you may want to use. You could definitely go a lot lighter than this, and you could always add green, like a mossy green. That would be very cool as well. So now I'm going to come in with some honey brown here. It's like a golden brown. Once we get, it all strung together, I think this color brown is really going to work well with the jute. And I'm just dabbing it on until I'm happy with it. And if I go a little heavy, like I did here, see I'm just spritzing it with water, and I'll just spread it out, and that will fade the color a wee bit If it's still not light enough, I can always go over it with maybe the charcoal or a hippo. So I'm just going to continue on until all my beads are done. And now I'm going to use a cosmetic sponge to pounce on a layer of matte Mod Podge as a sealer. I'm going with the matte because I want a more rough and rustic finish. Now we can thread all of our beads onto some jute. This is just a roll of jute from the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to get them all threaded before we add some embellishments. Each end is going to get a big jute tassel. And how I'm going to affix that tassel is I'm going to make a little loop with the excess jute at the end of our garland. I'm going to thread that excess back up through the very last bead. And to make sure, that the loop stays in place, I'm going to push a skewer through there just to hold the loop so that I don't accidentally pull the jute all the way through. You know what I'm saying? As you can see here, I've already made one tassel and tied it on. Now we'll do this end. Right, to make the tassel, I'm going to take my jute and attach it right here with a little bit of tape to this piece of cardboard. And I'm just going to wrap the jute about 20, I think I actually did 23 times around the cardboard. I wanted this tassel to be nice and long, so this cardboard I would say is probably, 6 or 7 inches long. And I'm just going to keep wrapping until I have a nice size tassel here. I've cut another length of jute that I'm going to pass through all of the threading there. And I'm going to tie it off at the top just to make sure it's nice and secure. And then we can remove it from the cardboard. I'm going to come down about an inch from the top and use another piece of jute and tie it off, to make that bump at the top of the tassel. And I want this to have a really rustic feel, so I'm going to take more jute and I'm just going to keep wrapping it nice and tight right around the top of that tassel. Now I'm going to tie the string that I left at the top of the tassel around the loop. So we're going to tie that nice and tight, double knot it. I'm going to cut some lengths of jute and just tie it into knots into each of those areas in between each bead. I really don't mind if it's bulky, I want it to be all different lengths and sizes. I just want it to have a really natural, organic look. A little chaos, a little messy. I'm going to add a little bit of glue and push that bead down onto that knot. And I'll continue knotting more jute into those spaces until the entire garland is finished. And now I'm going to cut the loop of the tassel there so that it becomes nice and fringy. And that's pretty much it. I picked up some of this Daz clay. It's the stone effect. So I thought, well, this is absolutely perfect to make some decorative balls. So I grabbed some styrofoam balls from the Dollar Tree, and I pulled out some of my cookie cutters that are a variety of leaf shapes. And let's make some decorative balls. First thing we're going to do is grab a handful of the clay. We're going to manipulate it, knead it, and then we're going to roll it out nice and thin. Once I get it as thin as I'd like, and I am going very thin with this because I want it to dry quickly, I'm going to cover my foam ball, just pressing the clay, making sure that it's well stuck to the styrofoam. I'll fill in any blank spots with extra clay. You can see I'm pulling it off, just make it easier to handle. And I'll roll it around on the table, more to adhere it. I'm not really worried with this particular project if it's smooth. I don't mind some lumps because we do want this to look like, it's stone, right? So we're going to keep going until the ball is completely covered. I'm going to roll out some more of the clay, again nice and thin. And we're going to grab one of our cookie cutters here and punch out some leaves. I've lightly spritzed my ball with some water. I'm just going to add a little texture here, just scoring that clay. Now I'm going to add my leaf right over top. I'm just going to push it, until it conforms to the shape of the ball. Okay, so to start, I'm going to add 4 leaves, and then we're going to add some embellishments to the leaves before we add additional leaves. So I'm just going to do some veining on the leaves with one of my pointy clay tools here. I'm not worried about, if it's accurate, it's just for texture. So see, you get the idea, and I really am liking the way that looks. Now I'm going to continue adding another layer on top of that layer until I'm happy. I'm going to add the veining each time I add a new layer. And then I'm going to let that set overnight to dry. Now I'm going to do one of the smaller balls, and I'm going to use a different leaf-shaped cookie cutter this time. Again, we're covering the ball in the exact same way we did the first ball. And rolling it around to make sure that the clay is well stuck. And I'm cutting out my leaf shapes. I'm spritzing the clay again. It's very warm here today, so the clay is kind of drying very quickly. But yeah, so we're going to spritz and add our leaves, and once again do some veining for texture. And I'm going to keep going until I'm happy with the number of leaves and the overall aesthetic of the ball. And I actually did a third ball, I believe, with a maple leaf shape. So once again, we're going to let these dry overnight. And in a very similar fashion as to how we added the variety of depth and color to our bead garland, I'm going to repeat that on our decorative balls. I think we could use a little sparkling here. So I'm going to dip my craft toothbrush into my paint and just pull my thumb over the bristles and sprinkle away. These two will get a top coat of matte Mod Podge as a sealer. Let's take a look at today's projects real quick. So here we have that lovely stone bead garland with the jute tassels and knots in between. I really love this. I'm into this whole organic thing again. Comes back around, right? I was really into this kind of thing in the early 90s, and here we are again. Here we go with our leaf-covered faux stone balls. Loving these. And again, I just think little things like this are fun to have around because I can use these any time of year for decor. Yeah, so a couple of really quick and budget-friendly projects to share with you guys. I hope you liked them. Please let me know what you thought. Drop me a comment. I definitely think I'll be doing more things like this in the very near future. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. Stay creative, my friends. Thanks for hanging with me. See you next time. Up all night with Monica.